It's the Blues Rock Show with Pete Francis and Willie Witten.
Welcome to the Blues Rock Show. I'm Pete Francis, joined by Willie Witten. Before we get started today, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the like button. It really helps with YouTube's algorithm, and it really helps our channel and more people see our videos. And we're trying to get this content out to as many people as possible. So please help us out there. Now, Willie, we're going to kick things off this week talking about live shows. Now, when you go to a concert or a live show, would you prefer the band to play their songs the way that they play them on the album? Or do you like when they change it up and kind of take their songs in a different direction?
I'm a big fan of taking songs in different directions at the live show. And the reason for that is if I'm going to go see a band, often it's because I love the band or the artist. And so their most recent albums and probably all their albums I have listened to extensively already. So I'm very familiar with the songs, and I love more than anything to hear, a song that's very loud and explosive on the album. Maybe they change the instrumentation and they slow it down a bit. I love the differing ways that they can position themselves to tell the same story, but just by changing the tone, they can really almost turn them into their own songs. And I think that like the spontaneity of a live performance, a lot of that is really, are you willing to go ahead and take some risks? Are you willing to put the trust in your audience and your fans that they know the songs, that they will recognize them even if you present them differently? And I'm someone also who likes long instrumental passages, and not just guitar, any instrument, long instrumental passages and the give and take between the band members. So for me, the more you can change it up, provided it's still quality, the more I like it. How about you, Pete? Do you want to see something that's close to what you get on the album, or are you sort of like me and want to see him take wild tangents?
I think it kind of depends. And it really depends on how much you like that specific song. Because sometimes I have a feeling when I go to a concert and they don't play it the way it is on the album, I'm kind of like, they go off in this different direction. I don't like the new direction. So it's kind of like you feel a little cheated almost as a fan when you don't get to hear it the way it is on the album. Now, with blues rock as a genre, most shows that you go to, the songs are going to be played completely different than they are on the album. And for many cases here, I don't have an issue with that. I think it's kind of cool sometimes when they take it in a different direction. Obviously, extended jams, things like that. I think that's very common, especially in blues rock music. So I think it really depends, and everything is really in a situational sort of basis. I think there are certain songs that artists have and you want to hear them and you want them to stick somewhat close to the album. Like for instance, if there's a really great guitar solo, I want to hear it played kind of like it is on the album. Now, if they have it extended and they add something to it, that's great. But I still want to hear that part of the guitar solo that really kind of resonated with me on the album. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of times artists will kind of completely change the guitar solo. And sometimes that's a good thing, but sometimes I don't think it's a good thing. So really, I think it all just depends, on the given situation.
Let me ask, because one of the things that my friends and I speak about and have differing opinions are the length of songs. So I tend to fall into the category. I also, besides blues and blues rock, I do also like a couple jam bands. And so for me, if a band decides to take a song for a 20-minute spin, it doesn't bother me. Like I can really enjoy it. Sometimes I think they're the best numbers of the night. But I do have a couple friends who are they get to the point where like, that's enough. Like the song needs to end. We need to get on to the next song. Do you find yourself more in the, hey, do what you want? Or do you like there to be a little bit of concise playing where we're not on one song for 32 minutes or something like that?
Yeah, I think 32 minutes is a bit overkill. So bands can get carried away at times. Now, I like a good jam, but it has to be a good jam, right? It can't be this 30 minutes of just never ending continuous noise that doesn't go anywhere. There has to be purpose behind it. It has to sound good. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of super extended jams, but it's really a hard question to answer, honestly, Willie, because it all just depends on the specific song and kind of the direction things are going.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
So another kind of interesting topic, Willie, when you look at an artist's body of work and say there's an artist or a band that has one or two phenomenal albums, and then the rest of their albums are all pretty mediocre. And then you have another band or an artist that maybe they have 7 or 8 really solid albums and they're consistently good. How would you kind of measure those bands by their body of work? Do you think the band that has 1 or 2 great albums would be the better band? Or do you think it's the band that just has consistently put out good stuff, but not quite to that same level as that first band?
That's a tough question because my original answer, or the answer that comes off the tip of my tongue immediately, is I will rate the band higher based on their finest moments or their finest albums in this case. And I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago, just, like you do in the time of the pandemic where you think about some odd stuff. And after a little bit of thinking about it, I thought, you know what? That's a little bit harsh, because if you really sit there and say that one album by this band is maybe among the best 20 albums in the past 10 years, but then they have little else to show, like that also, it starts to seem like you're doing a little bit of a disservice to bands that have great stuff through and through. So I guess maybe I'd even say the number of those awesome legendary moments or albums has to be greater than 2, for say. Like I'm just throwing out a number in this case, but like if you have 3 really great ones, then maybe I can say, okay, I'll take the peak of this artist's output versus the other band that is just pretty consistent. But if it's really only one, if there's, we all know those bands that had that one terrific album, it's like, no, I can't put them higher than someone who's been cranking out great stuff for 20 years. So I don't know, maybe it's 3 for me. You have to have 3 incredible moments before I allow that to be the criteria in which I say that you're better than this band. I don't know, Pete, it's a tough one. What do you think?
I think I'm pretty much right there with you, Willie. You got to have more than one great album or one, really big hit. I think you got to have at least a couple really good albums. Now, if you have 2 or 3 just banger albums that are really great, I think I would put that band or artist ahead of one that, say, has 7 just consistently good albums. I think because at the end of the day, what are you going back to as a listener? Are you consistently going back to 7 or 8 albums? Probably not. I mean, of your favorite artists, you're probably going back to the same couple of albums, right?
Right.
The same albums that really resonated with you. So I think for me, I think it would be that artist that has a few albums that are just, totally elite albums over the artist that's consistently good, but maybe never really gets to that great top tier level.
Yeah, I think that that's really probably the way that I think a lot of people are going to look. And I think people will have variation on how many does it need to be. Certainly, I think we'd all agree. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm speaking for other people. But I think most people will say one hit song does not make a legendary band. I think certainly on that
I think that's
extreme,
proven.
Yeah, it's definitely proven. But I do think there is a threshold because you're right. I think something you said resonates in me is that on any given band, even, some of my absolute favorites, there's definitely a percentage of concentration that I'm listening to maybe these 3, 4, or 5 albums. Like, I'll be honest, I don't spend a lot of time on Zeppelin's In Through the Outdoor. I just don't. And I think that there's probably a lot of people that share that sentiment. So yeah, like albums ranked 6 through 15 for a lot of artists, half of my time is probably listening to their best stuff. So if your best stuff is better than someone else's best stuff, then yeah, maybe I think that's what makes it better. But there's got to be enough. It's got to be at least a couple albums. And there has to be a stretch of time when that band or artist was just at the peak. They were one of the best things going at the time. There has to be a really high brilliance point, and it can't just be one song or one album.
Yeah, Willie. And like I said, I think that's that best stuff. That's what people go back to time and time and time again. They're not going to go back to the just pretty good. I think with the pretty good stuff, you kind of like it at the time, and then a year or two later, how often are you going back to it? Not as much.
Not so
So
much.
I definitely am with you on this.
And
Kind
it's
of shifting
also,
gears really back to concerts.
yeah.
Okay. Now, with concerts looking like they'll probably be coming back somewhat soon, I think this year, do you prefer, and just in general, this is not necessarily having to do with the pandemic at all, but just in general, outdoor versus indoor concerts? What's your preference?
Um, Not to cop out, but of course I like them both. But if I had to pick one and make the decision on which I like more, I'm sort of an indoor guy. And let me
I
give
find
a
that a little
couple.
surprising.
You know what? A lot of people find that surprising, but I have my reasons. And the
Of
first
course you
reason
do.
is acoustics. I feel that in a closed space with a known amount of tickets sold in bodies and seats, that you get to tailor those acoustics a little more finely. You get sometimes a liver sound that isn't maybe as echoey. Sometimes in outdoor shows, there's a lot of echo. That's one reason. So the acoustics. Two, uh, the same things that make outdoor shows great also can be a detriment, and that's the weather at times. We've all been to, or we're hoping to go to a show to only see it rained out, canceled, etc.
Yeah, that's always a bummer.
It's a huge bummer, but it happens and that's life. But my third reason that's a little more nuanced is the crowd itself. I find that because an outdoor show will bring people who maybe don't love the band or they're seeing several bands like at a festival, that's great. It's always great to have new people there. But on an indoor show, if there's only 2,500 to 4,000 people in a nice venue, what you know is that the people that are filing in for that night's show, they are all fans of that band, or pretty much most of them. So there's a little more cohesiveness in the audience, if that makes sense. So there's a little more, it's a little more of a familial experience. Like the people you pass in the hallway, everyone's there for the band. Everyone has the right attitude, hopefully. So that's sort of my take. But Pete, I think I know which way you're going with this. So I got to ask, indoor or outdoor for you, man?
Well, for me, it's outdoor, but you do bring up some really good points. And I think specifically that point about the audience being a little more kind of targeted for that specific band. That's a really good point. But in terms of indoor or outdoor, for me, I'm going to go with outdoor. And the reason being, it's hard to beat the vibe of an outdoor concert, especially a festival during the summertime, when the weather's great, during the evening, when the weather's like 70 degrees.
Yeah.
You don't have any rain or thunderstorms that you're dealing with. Everyone's there to just have a good time. You got good music, you got good people around you. Everyone's in a good mood. Everybody's happy. I think it's hard to beat that outdoor feeling during the summertime when everyone is there to just kind of let go, have some fun, enjoy music, and have a good time. So for me, it's hard to top that. Now, I'm definitely not opposed to indoor concerts.
Right.
I think as far as indoor goes, I like them more in sort of an intimate setting.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of arena concerts at all. In fact,
Neither am I.
Pretty much hate arena concerts. I don't think they're that enjoyable. I don't think they're that fun. But if you're in a small venue that say has 100, 200 people and you've got a band that's just killing it, I mean, I think that's awesome. I think that's very enjoyable because for me, if I'm at an indoor concert, I want to be close to the stage. I want to be close and have that sort of experience. But like I said, if it's an arena show or something like that, and you're far away and the sound's not great, and it's just not that great of an experience compared to an outdoor, because at least in an outdoor, like at a festival or something like that, if there's thousands and thousands of people, you still kind of have that vibe. I think the vibe is a little better when you put the two head to head. So for me, at the end of the day, it's outdoors.
Fair enough. Just because I got to give my shout outs now to my favorite two places. For me, my favorite indoor venue in the world to this day still is the Chicago Theater. I don't think anything beats it. And outdoors, I'm looking at East Troy, Wisconsin, a place called Alpine Valley. That's my favorite place for the outdoors. So those are my go-tos. I think this is the time of the show where we'd ask the listeners, hey, Indoor or outdoor, what do you like better? Why? And feel free in the comments section to go ahead and drop us your favorite indoor place and your favorite outdoor place. What do you think, Pete? Decent idea?
I think it's a great idea. So yeah, let us know in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe. If for nothing else, just to make Willie and myself feel good, because we need an ego boost too. So that'll help us out. But seriously, help us out there. Hit the like button, hit subscribe. It really helps the channel, and we really, really definitely appreciate your support. And obviously, we've been bringing some guests on the show. Who would you like to see on the show?
Yeah.
Let us know down in the comments section below. But that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Blues Rock Show. For Willie Witten, I'm Pete Francis. We'll see you next time.